This is interesting because this is something I haven't heard before. When you say live, and I'll take care of the whole screen and camera thing. But when
Cool.
you say lies, like, can you give me an example?
Yes, I can give you a perfect example. One of the things that I ran into was misinformation
Uh,
in the process. And the misinformation would either be from the hospital to the S to the Social Security Administration or just within the hospital setting themselves because they had so many departments. I am a victim of Kaiser. There was multiple,
oh God.
yeah, there was multiple times where information was either missed, mislabeled, not reported correctly. It was horrendous. And then I had to follow up and personally grab my information and make sure it was given to the Social Security Administration on multiple times where they were like, well, we don't have this. And I think I had a situation with you earlier where they called and they were like, oh, you have like 10 days, right?
Mhm.
And it creates a panic because you're trying to get this information, you're trying to track it down. You go to Kaiser and then they tell you, oh, well, it takes 5 to 7 days, and you've already missed like 5 or 6 days. And it was a conundrum. It was bad. It was really bad.
This is amazing that you share this. I'm very grateful for it. I mean, people have this false sense of security when you're dealing with hospitals and the Social Security Administration, thinking that hospitals and doctors that everything's going to flow smoothly. So, what was your kind of workflow? Would you go to the doctors and then loop back and look at your patient portal? And
I would go to the doctor. I would loop back, look at my patient portal, and then I would realize that there was information that wasn't in my chart. So I would reach out to my doctor and say, hey, this isn't there. What would happen to me at Kaiser was they would say, oh, well, we need you to go to this doctor as an example. And I would say, okay, I'm ready to go to this doctor. There's no referral. And you're like, well, I need this referral. And then the
mm,
doctor says, well, I can't rate you because I'm not the correct doctor to rate you. You have to go to this doctor to get rated. It was a lot of shenanigans,
mm,
shuffle game, just little simple things. For me to get my temporary placard was a challenge
mm,
where it was the doctor that was going to fill out the paperwork. And then Kaiser has something called RIO, Release of Information Office, and
yep.
dealing with those people um, could be very, very challenging whenever you approach them. They're just, they're really nonchalant. They don't care. They're just
Mm.
there to take your information. And if it meets, it meets. When you reach out to the doctor, they tell you, oh, email the doctor. Sometimes the doctor doesn't get back to you for 5 or 7 days.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, the other thing that what I appreciate about you bringing this up is that in my opinion, there is no such done for you solution in doing this. I mean, we work together with you, what I would view to be a partnership with you working with Curl, but without you doing those steps, like we don't have access to your patient portal. I guess we could if you provided it to us. But point is some of this stuff just has to be managed by the patient. And in most instances, people just don't. So
You
yeah,
have to, you have to do your due diligence.
yeah.
That is by all the most important thing. You have to stay on top of these people. You have to be aware of what's going on. They even tried at one point in time to change my diagnosis. And I was like, how do you change my diagnosis when my situation could have resulted in my death. And the excuse I was given was no excuse. It was just, they kind of just looked at me and they never responded. And that's when I noticed that once you were on top of your situation and you were being articulate and you were managing it and you just accepted like, okay, I'm gonna have to learn this system the best way because I'm not a doctor and I'm not the smartest person in the world. However, it was for me, it was the reality of this is my situation, and if I don't stay current on it, it's going to all fall on me.
Yeah.
Um, and they played games with the dates by turning in paperwork late or just, oh, well, we don't know it. I even was told it got lost in the mail. And I was
Mm,
like,
mm,
wow. So, people really just need to be aware that they really have to stay vigilant and
yeah.
do what's best for them because they're not going to openly just say, "Oh, yeah, this is the way everything goes. Let me just walk you in here and give you all the correct information." It
Hmm.
doesn't work. It doesn't work like that.
And what about on the Social Security side? Was there any challenges there, or were they consistent with their performance?
They were consistent all the way up to a point. Once I got to like 90%, they stalled. I followed some of your information that you on your website where you said, hey, reach out to your local senator department and
Yep.
contact people and start, kind of shake the tree a little bit.
Hmm.
Um, and that's what I basically had to do was I had to reach out to some, make a couple phone calls or an email. And that could be challenging to navigate. However, they were much more perceptive. They were like, "Oh, I'm sorry you're going through this. Let me guide you through our portal so you can submit your complaint." And
Yeah.
that's what I had to do to keep things moving because Social Security got to a point to where they just stalled. And I
Yeah.
was kind of like, "Why are you guys stalling when I'm so close to being completed?" And
Hmm.
it became very obvious that they were stalling even after I had went to the doctors. Actually, it was kind of weird because when I went to the Social Security Administration doctors, um, when I mentioned who my provider was, a couple of them were like, "Hey, you're with Kaiser," and one of them he didn't say anything, but his body language was he just shook his head. He just shook his head. He said, "Okay, I get it."
I get it.
Um, but I did follow your advice. I took everything in on a USB drive, my medical records, um, and I offered it to him. Uh, I was kind of familiar with my time frame of where to start at, so I kind of said, "Hey,
Hmm.
listen, I haven't had any problems in my life up until this point. This is where I entered the hospital at. Here's the conditions," and that seemed to provide the unspoken support that I needed once he looked at it. Then it was weird because he said, "You were in the hospital." I said, "Yes." He said, he asked me a couple other questions about my what I was doing. And I said, yes. And he said, I'm kind of trying to figure my way out through this conversation. So excuse me. He basically said, okay, I'll reach out to Kaiser and get your medical records personally. He goes, because there seems to be some misinformation in here.
Hmm.
And but that's all he said. He didn't go into any details or, anything further. He basically just wanted to know limitations of what I could and couldn't do. Um, and he was pretty straightforward. I think my appointment lasted maybe 30 minutes. However, what I would tell people is make sure you take somebody with you into that office. Do not go in there by yourself because it is your word against a doctor's word, and
Hmm.
you're going to lose. It keeps them honest when you take a third person with you. Um, that that is imperative.
Good, good advice. Yeah, so you got approved without going to a hearing, which is fantastic. And you've shared some great tips. Is there any other, you know, nuggets of information that you think would be helpful for people to know to achieve the same result or do the best they can? Let's put it that way.
Create a file. Create a file, and every paper you get, document it. And better yet, create two files. Create your Social Security Administration file and your
Mm-hmm.
doctor's files, and keep them separate. Keep everything in order, and definitely sign up for the Social Security Administration account so you can monitor that process.
Yeah.
Because they'll tell you as they're going through it, they'll tell you like, this is the date that your application was received. This is where
Mm-hmm.
we're at. This is the information we're looking at. This is where we're reviewing. Unfortunately, the responsibility ultimately falls on you as a individual going through the process, that you have to stay vigilant and be aware of everything you're going. There was a lot of sleepless nights. There were nights that I had a sea of paper, but because I couldn't sleep or I was in pain, what I would do is I would literally just get the paper, have it next to me, and I would just sort like 30 minutes at a time, right? I would just sort out that paper and put it into a file so I knew where it was at, so I could refer to it if I needed it.
So could somebody use like an email folder as a system, or are you referencing like a straight file on your hard drive on your computer?
Um, what I actually did was I had a hard copy of paper, and then I would scan everything into my computer,
Okay.
and I created scans. I can tell you from experience that all of your forms for Social Security Administration, the 3386 and the 30, whatever those numbers are associated,
Mm-hmm.
you should scan those, send a copy. So what I would do is I would send a copy to your office. I would mail in a copy, and I kept a digital copy.
Okay.
So I made sure that I always had copies of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And there was, I want to say, approximately 4 or 5 times that Social Security reached out to me and said, we don't have this information, or we're missing this information. And it was really easy for me to just locate it
Yep.
and resubmit it,
Yeah.
without trying to have to recreate it over again.
Yeah. I'm sure some listening out there are going to be like, that's way too techy for me. But I mean, if you can do it or take the time to do it and learn it, you know, what the message is here that I'm hearing from you. I mean, you're in a legal case is really this what this is. So to be organized, have everything, it's just great practice. I appreciate the tips that you've shared. Um, yeah. Anything else you can think of?
Um, that's about it.
Okay,
Just,
cool.
yeah, that's about it.
Cool. Well, thank you.